مساء الخير أعزائي المشاهدين، أهلا بيكم في حلقة جديدة من برنامج مصدر موثوق. زي ما احنا متعودين في برنامج مصدر موثوق إن احنا بنتكلم عن القوانين وبنحاول يكون ضيفنا هو المسؤول أو وظيفته هي القوانين اللي احنا بنتكلم عليها في الحلقة. النهاردة حلقة خاصة جدا وحلقة مهمة جدا وجديدة جدا. النهاردة هتكون معايا ضيفتي اللي هتنورنا في الاستوديو النهاردة الستيت سيناتور أوتشوا بوغ. النهارده هيكون معانا سيناتور من ستيت اوف كاليفورنيا. هتورينا ازاي القوانين بتتكتب وهتعرفنا يعني ايه حكومه فيدراليه يعني ايه حكومه للولايه نفسها. كمان هتعرفنا حقوقنا وازاي نوصل صوتنا، وهتعرفنا اهميه التعليم واهميه الصحه، وكمان هتعرفنا ازاي اقدر اوصل صوتي للحكومه بتاعتي واكون عضو فعال في الحكومه بتاعتي. النهارده حلقه خاصه جدا وهتكون معايا الستيت سيناتور أوتشوا بوغ. انتظرونا بعد الفاصل. My guest today is very special. Today we have with us State Senator Ochoa Bogh. Senator Ochoa Bogh is a native Californian and the daughter of Mexican immigrants. She credits her family with teaching her personal responsibility and the value of an education and hard work. Senator Ochoa Bogh is a graduate of the University of California, Santa Barbara. She received her teaching credential from California State University, San Bernardino, and went on to teach the English language at the elementary school level. She has been a proud realtor for 20 years, helping others achieve the American dream. In November 2020, Senator Ochoa Bogh was elected as the California State Senator for the 23rd District, which includes San Bernardino County and many more cities in the Inland Empire. Senator, I want to start out by thanking you for accepting my invitation to come on my show and taking the time to educate the Arab community on the California state government. Welcome, Senator.
Thank you so much, Dali, for having me here. It's a blessing and just such an honor to be here for the first time.
It's an honor for us to have you here. Yes, Senator. So, Senator, from teaching to being a realtor to a senator, which accomplishment are you most proud of?
My children.
Oh,
My role as a mother.
Of course.
And I just want to, I do want to share that really quick because I really believe that the family is very important to any society, to any culture. And I say that because it is my first time here, and California is, the policy is being very, the only word I can think is it's being very detrimental to the family unit.
Right.
And so I just wanted to preface our conversation as to the importance of family, and for me, as both as a woman, as a mother, as a professional, as a state senator, family is very important. And one of my priorities is to ensure that we build on policy that strengthens family, not dismantles it.
I totally agree with you.
So
Yes.
besides that,
Yes.
I love teaching. I'm an eternal teacher by heart.
Yeah.
I think education, I'm a lifelong learner. So I love to learn new things, which is great for this job because you're always learning new things. And
Right.
so as I learn, my hope and my work thus far is to ensure that I translate that education to my communities, to my constituents, to my district, so that they can better understand government, to understand the issues that are impacting us and the policy that impacts everyday lives for everyday Californians.
That's so important. So, Senator, now I'm wondering, what inspired you to become a senator?
So my path into this seat has been a very organic one. As a mother of 3 children whom I raised to be kind, hardworking, education focused, self-driven and personal responsibility. I'm very sad to see the state of affairs that we have in California and the nation. There's a lot of toxicity. There's a lot of behavioral health issues. There's a lot of animosity between families, community members, because we're not communicating right. And I thought when the opportunity came to be able to be in this position, I thought to myself, I didn't take it lightly. It took me about a month before I decided to move forward and run for state senate. But I thought, this is not the world I want for my children.
Yes.
This is not the world that I want them to inherit. And you will often hear me say, we have no control over anyone else's words or actions except our own.
Correct.
So let me model what I've been able to accomplish in my community, navigating different demographics, different political spectrum, people on the political spectrum. Let me show a different light of what governance and politics can look like. And so I decided to take upon that responsibility with a lot of hesitation and fear at first. I thought, no, I can't do this. But then once I decided, as a woman of faith, I had confirmation. And once I knew and I had that peace that I could do this job, it has been no fear. I just went right through.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm sure that wasn't an easy choice.
It wasn't an easy choice because I knew that it would sacrifice a lot of time at home. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. And I wouldn't recommend it for anybody who has young children, but when you value family, you value your children, you value your husband, I thought, ooh, I gotta talk to them. So I first spoke to my husband, then my son, because he would be the one that would be the most impacted because he's the one that stayed home. He's still entering high school.
Right?
My 17-year-old, who's now a senior. My girls were in college, so I thought it won't be very impactful for them.
Correct.
But for my son, and I remember my husband was gung-ho. He was very excited about the opportunity. But my son said, he goes, I said, Red, what do you think about me running for state senate?
Okay.
And he said, we were driving him to school and he was in the front seat with me and he said, I'm gonna have to think about that, Mom. And I said, okay, fair enough. I said, but let me just share with you some pros, points to think about, and some negative. And once I started sharing the pros, he says, do it, Mom.
Wow, that's amazing.
But I'm grateful that we have FaceTime, we have the technology, we have text messaging, and as you may already know, when children are in high school, especially juniors and seniors in high school, they're so busy in life, and I have to ask them, so, Red, do you miss your mom? he gets a little bit embarrassed, and he says, well, Mom, I'm really busy. But so that was a good thing. But I'm glad because I don't want him to miss his mom.
Yes.
And I'm glad that he's very focused in school with athletics, with service organizations, with schools. So it's in church. He has a lot of things that he does with church. So I thought, okay, I'm glad he has his world. And so when I get home on Thursdays, it's just, telling me about his week and what goes on. So I have a very close relationship with him, and I think that's important. Once again, focusing on the importance of family and ensuring that no matter what we do professionally, it doesn't jeopardize the quality and the caliber of relationships with our children.
In my community, when we think of the government, the first thing that comes to mind is the federal government. Not many know that California has its own representative government. Can you explain your role as a state senator?
So you're absolutely right. Many people, when they think government, they think federal government.
Yes.
President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and Congress.
Yes.
U.S. senators and Congress.
To be honest,
congressmen.
For me, that's all I know about government.
Exactly. And the majority of people do. And so when they think, California State Senator, they think, oh, you're going to Washington, D.C.,
Yes.
right? That's what people automatically think. We're like, well, actually, no. I'm a California State Senator, not U.S. California Senator.
Yes.
So what that means, and I'm going to describe it really quick. I'm a visual, so I use my hands a lot.
Yes, I love it.
As a teacher.
Yeah, I love it, yeah.
So in California, we have the federal government, and we also have the state government. The state government for the state of California comprises of, at the top, the governor, right now, which is Governor Newsom. We have 40 senators that make up the legislature. 40 senators, I'm one of 40, and on the average, we represent about 1 million people. And then we have 80 assembly members. So governor, senators, and the assembly members. Out of the 80 assembly members, the makeup is very interesting, and I share this with you because it's who's in power in the state of California, which most people do not know. And a lot of the policy that passes is because of the majority party. And what we have in California is called a majority party, which means that it's basically governed primarily, actually exclusively, by Democrats.
Yes.
I'm a Republican, and we can talk about that right afterwards. But so we have the governor, 40 senators, 80 assembly members. I am one of 40 senators representing, well, right now, because of the redistricting that happened, I represent about 33, 35 communities and cities, just over 1.2 million people. And they are in charge of many of laws. So we have to go through all the laws that impact schools, that impact businesses, local businesses, that impact how we build homes in California, energy in California, transportation, infrastructure, all of that is impacted by many of the laws that we talk about, discuss, and pass in the state Senate.
So from my understanding, your main role as a senator is to write law and control the budget. That's a very important job.
Actually, yes, all of the above. So part as a state senator, we actually are able to introduce what we call introduce policy or legislation that is vetted and goes through committees so that it can go through the committees and then it goes to the Senate floor. It goes then to the Assembly for them to review. So the piece of policy goes through the Senate or it's introduced. As a senator, I introduce it. It goes through committees to the Senate floor, and then it goes to the Assembly, to their committees, to the Assembly floor. If it changes, it comes back to the Senate, and if it doesn't change, it goes to the governor for signature. So part of our role is to introduce legislation. Another aspect as a state senator is oversight. So making sure that all our state departments and agencies are running efficiently and effectively the way that they were meant to be. So that's another thing that we're supposed to do. We don't do a lot of that, but that's our role, is oversight over departments and policy that we pass. And then that's in Sacramento. But we also have work in the district that we have to do. And in the district, our focus in our office primarily, number one, is constituent services. So if you are having problems with, say, the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, or EDD, or if you own a business, the Franchise Tax Board. So any of those state departments, state agencies, your local assembly member, your local state senator can help you navigate those state agencies, especially when it's very lengthy time to receive paperwork or be able to get a hold of somebody. Your state senator, your state assembly member's office can help you navigate those state agencies.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, Senator, we know that you are one of the 40 senators who govern California, and you are a Republican senator that sits on 10 committees. Can you explain what committees are and why they are important?
Great question. So our committees in the state of California, we have, as senators, we introduce policy. Well, the Rules Committee actually looks at the policy that's been introduced and says, okay, this is impacted by education. It impacts budget. So they refer those policies, those legislations, to the Committee on Education and perhaps to appropriations so that they can be vetted and amended, and then it goes into into the Senate floor for voting. So the committees actually vet. That's where the vetting comes in. That's where we discuss and talk about the policy itself. Does it work? Does it not work? Is it doing what it's intended to do or not intended to do? And that's an excellent opportunity as well for people like yourself and myself, constituents and residents, to call in to be able to give feedback as to whether or not you support or you oppose the legislation that's being considered.
Oh, that's great. But you have a lot of committee, like 10.
We do. We have about, so I have 10 committees, 9 that are actually always going. And the reason being is, I think we have a total of either 20 or 22 committees just in the state Senate.
Okay.
And it's divided by the members in the Democrat Party and divided by the 8 members in the Republican Party.
So only 8 senators?
There's only 8 of
Republican?
us. And this is why it's important to note on why that's important for the audience to know. So Democrats and Republicans have different philosophies on how and what the role of government should be, right? Very different. And we can expand on that on a different episode. But as Republicans, we believe in limited government. We believe in personal responsibility, personal freedoms, personal agency. That is our focus. So low taxes, low government intrusion, let you keep your money mostly, and let you make the decisions that are best for your family.
Correct.
Democrats on the other side feel that government has a bigger role in personal lives. And that's, I think, the biggest conflict that we have between the Republicans and Democrats. It's philosophical. It's about the role of government, basically. And social issues is another area where we vary quite a bit. My goal as a state senator, because as you can imagine, we hear all the time all the animosity between Democrats and Republicans. My goal is to help mitigate some of those conversations so that we don't vilify the person, but look at policy and see whether or not policy is good or bad. And I think that's the most important part, because there are many people who have been so discouraged by the toxicity in government and politics, right? It's like, oh, my voice does not matter. This is, I don't want to be a part of it. It's too toxic. Or we have family members that don't talk to each other because they have different perspectives on policy, on views. It can be different. And I want to make sure that I empower people on how to think about policy, how to be able to discuss it. And this is important because, and I'm going to share this with you, because I always talk about frontal lobe versus the primal brain, right? When we talk about policy, it's always important to keep it with language that engages the frontal lobe of the brain, where we think logically, rationally, and not on the primal part, where we become defensive and we become angry and we become threatened. When we do that, we lose the ability to communicate in a way that uses language where we can think this way, and it engages the primal brain instead. And so I as a former teacher, one of the biggest things for me is to help people understand, okay, how do we think through and how do we communicate? And how do we get engaged? How do we get our voices heard in government? Because that's so important. Your voice, your voice has power. Your voice has power, and if you learn how you can use it, it empowers you, and it helps guide government. So that's why you have to know that it has power, know that you can use it, and to own it.
Yes. Something I learned about you, Senator, that I admire is that you're always trying to fix the problem from the root, finding long-term solution rather than short-term. Can you tell me some of the issues that you feel strongly about? So
I have the privilege to, and I say privilege because it is a privilege and an honor, to sit in public safety. Right? Public safety right now, there's various factions where they want to decriminalize. They want to have criminal justice reform, right? That's very important for my colleagues on the Democrat side. And so what they've done is they've decriminalized, right, a lot of these behaviors, and so releasing a lot of people into the community before serving their terms.
Yes, crime increasing a lot
exactly.
these days. Yeah.
And we see a lot of petty crime going on. We see a lot of homelessness going on. We see a lot of issues. I had the opportunity, as a member of the public safety, to visit a prison in Lancaster, and was able to speak to various inmates, people who were serving time, life without parole, which means they were there for a life sentence. When I sit on public safety and I hear my colleagues, my Democrat colleagues, talk about reducing sentences, not criminalizing, not enhancing criminal sentences, I hear, because they think, well, we can't do this because the criminal justice system is primarily impacted disproportionately with Black and brown people, right? So the fear is that if you pass stricter laws when it comes to criminal justice, you will be incarcerating primarily Black and brown people.
So they make it racial issue.
They make it a racial, and more than a racial, a skin color issue, right? Because it's not even. Well, I guess you could say it's racial, but it's always Black and brown, Black and brown.
Skin
and
color.
Normally when they refer to that, they refer to Black culture and also the Latino culture, right?
Oh, okay.
Because they disproportionately impact the system. Well, as my friends, and I say friends because they're my colleagues and friends, as they discuss the policy and they reduce sentencing, or they don't want to pass any harsher criminal penalties, I hear what they're saying, right? When I went to and spoke to the inmates that were incarcerated with life without parole, I said, so gentlemen, I said, tell me, what happened in life? Where did we lose you that you started choosing the wrong path, making the wrong choices that led you to this place at this time in your life? Right? So my colleagues are just about not criminalizing, giving more money into the communities, giving assistance, right? And so I wanted to see if that was the way that you fix the issue, you fix the problem. And so I asked him, I said, I kept asking questions and questions as to getting to the root of, like, where did you deviate from making the right choices to the wrong choices?
What did he say?
Number one, having broken, dysfunctional families. So many of the gentlemen that I spoke to said, I had an abusive father. I didn't have loving parents. They weren't there. And so I needed to go out and find a group that saw me, that heard me, that loved me, that embraced me. Gangs was at home, because at home it was abusive. Physically, emotionally, psychologically, all of the above. So families, and that's why my focus is on the importance of families, right? So families was one of the top factors. Number two, education.
Of course.
Education. There was a gentleman there that showed his trajectory, and he said, I went to school, because he asked me, he goes, well, I dropped out of school and we started going into the gangs and started getting into that lifestyle, and that's what got him into there. And I asked him, I said, sir, why did you drop out of school? And he says, because I wasn't doing well in school. They kicked me out. At first, actually said, they kicked me out of football, and so I didn't have a reason to stay in school. And I said, why did they kick you out of school? And he said, because my grades weren't good enough. And I said, and I kept asking more questions to get under the root. Why weren't you doing well in your classes? And then he got embarrassed. And I felt terrible, because it wasn't my intent to embarrass him. But I asked him, why were you not performing well in school? And he said, it took him a while. He looked down and then he said, I couldn't read. And I said, sir, how did you get to high school without the ability to read?
Correct.
And he said, I charmed my way through my classes. I cheated. I kind of charmed the teachers to give me a grade to pass, and I just got along elementary, junior high. But when I got to the high school, the classes became too hard for me to be able to finagle and work around education.
That's amazing that teachers miss this.
And imagine how many teachers he had to go through in order to be able to miss that.
Yes.
And so my focus then came, okay, we have to do a better job in education. We have to focus on the family, making sure that they have their healthy environments, healthy parenting classes, healthy, just an environment that is conducive for parents to be home and be there for their kids when it's time, the quality time, but also be aware of what is it, how hard is it? And to think that there are families who don't know what a healthy family looks like.
Right.
So we went from families to education. And then I asked, so for one of the gentlemen who had chosen to do better in prison, to take the classes and learn and graduate from school, all of them, many of them had dropped out of high school or junior high. And at this program where they were at in the particular prison, they were in a program that allowed them to take classes and work. And I asked him. That's
wonderful.
That is wonderful. And this is something that we need to do in prison, is give those opportunities, because there comes a point, and I asked.
Yeah, for them to change their life.
What changed? What clicked in your mind, in your brain, that you said, no more to this life. I want something different. I want to be better.
Yes.
What changed? And all of them said they hit rock bottom. They hit rock bottom. And then for another gentleman, he said, I had a daughter. I had a daughter, and I wanted to do better for her. Sorry.
No, having children affect us so much.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. So we have to ensure that our prison system has classes that allow people, when they're ready, because not everybody's ready at the same time, right? When they're ready, that they can take that self-improvement classes, emotional intelligence courses, academic courses, learn how to read, learn a trade, and learn how to do things, how to work. Because many of them also didn't have opportunities for work. Skill sets, right? And that allows people to be able to get into trouble, into gangs, and to make a living, or to pass the time for a sense of belonging and purpose. And that's what we should take into consideration about where the root of the problem is. So families, right? We need to focus on the families, healthy families. Education. No excuse for any child not to go through the educational system without the ability to read and write and do math. So we have to focus on that. And then the last component that they addressed on how to change, what made them come back, many of them said faith. They had found God.
Yes.
And so, people often ask, are you becoming more liberal? I hope you don't change in Sacramento. I said, oh no. If anything, I've become more conservative, because I realize that what I've been taught my whole life, which is family, faith, education, purpose, and hard work that gives you in those foundations, is so important for us to improve the lives of Californians as a whole. So in our communities, we have to ensure that everyone has the support system that they need within our faith, within our churches, within our families, within our neighbors, single moms, single dads. How can I help you? How can we help the kids? We need to create those support systems, because if those children don't feel seen, don't feel loved, don't have purpose, whether it's volunteering, whether it's working, we're going to lose them, and we can't afford to lose them.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. Senator, I'm so glad you keep mentioning family and parents. Now, one of the biggest issues we are facing in California is the threat to parental rights. So many people I know are so concerned about this issue. Many parents have told me that they are afraid to take their kids to public schools because of the things that they will be taught. How do you feel about that?
I share their concern. I do. As a matter of fact, just within the last 2.5 years that I've been serving in the Senate, I have several times sat on the Senate floor after our voting has finished in tears, crying about some of the bills that we've passed as a state legislature, removing parental rights, and giving more power to the state than to the parents to raise their children. And I think this is why it's so important to talk about how do we share the information of policy to everyday Californians when they're very, very busy. How do we do that? How do we let you know, hey, did you know we just passed a law that prohibits parents from requesting medical records on behalf of their children if they're 12 years and over, unless you have permission by your child? Or how do we know about the fact that they passed a piece of legislation that says health plans are not allowed to let you, the plan holder who pays for the policy, to confirm whether or not services or medications have been provided to your family? No.
Really?
No.
Is that true?
Yes. They passed that law. So you, the health plans, cannot let you know what services, medications have been given to any of your family members, especially your children, if they're 12 years and older.
No way.
You cannot confirm. So aside from the fear of potential fraud, imagine what that does as you as a parent, that your child can go through these whole medical procedures, any medical procedure, receive any medication with regards to anything at all, abortions, STDs, trans care, and you as a parent would have no idea, no clue on what they're going through. As a parent, if my child is going through all of that, I want to know. I want to be able to support my child. I want to be able to. But the sad part is that many of my colleagues, well-intended, but misguided, in my opinion, because they feel because we have parents who do not have the ability to parent, be there for their child, we're going to remove every parent's ability and responsibility to be a parent. And that's where I have a problem. And this is where we give the government more control over our children versus you as a parent having the ability to have input, feedback, and oversight of your children's health care and education. And that, I don't believe, is what most Californians want, or even think or know that that's what we currently have in place.
Yes, and no one cares about our children more than parents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But once again, their thought process is because we have a handful of parents that are not meeting those needs, now we're going to take it away from any other parent and give the power to the government. That is what's going on in California.
So how can we as a community make our voices heard and be more involved in our state government?
First of all, know who your local assembly member is, who your local senator is, where do you live, and you can easily go online and basically Google, who is my state senator, and put your address there, and they will let you know who the assembly member and the senator is. From there on, sign up for their emails and their social media, if they have social media, and call their office and ask, how do you inform your constituents about the policy that is being discussed in committees and in the legislature, whether it's the Assembly or the Senate? Let them and put that responsibility on them to inform you. Also, the other way that you can also follow is on the state Senate or the state legislature, I'm speaking more reference, my state Senate.
Yes.
The state Senate website for California, it actually shares the committees that are being held. And in the committees, it also shows you the bills that are being discussed. So that's another way that you can figure out what the policies are. In my district, what I'm doing is I email, when the committees are in place in the state of California, we email all of our constituents, all the committees, and give a couple of sentences about each bill being discussed in that committee. And then we provide a link that allows you to watch the committee or give feedback and follow that legislation as it moves through the committees, through the legislature. So we're sending this information to you because I want to inform my constituents about the policies that are being discussed, and I want you to make sure that you have the information on how you can have your voice engage. We support, we oppose, but it's important for you to let us know.
Oh, that's amazing. Do most senators do that?
I don't know. I can't say for everybody, but feel free to reach out to our office and we'll be more than happy to add you to our list to let you know.
Yeah.
But our constituents, and I say this to all my constituents when I speak at town halls or I meet with them, I said, share what we're sharing with you. Because as a former educator, I want to help disseminate information, empower people, and have them engaged so that we can have the California that actually reflects everyday Californians.
I speak for myself and most members of my community when I say that not many people knows that the senator's office can help with different issues. Can you tell us simply in which situations can we reach out to our senator's office for help?
Absolutely. So any state department that you're dealing with, if you're a business owner and you have to deal with your licensing, if you're a professional, you're dealing with your licenses, if you're dealing with getting your permits for alcohol for your restaurants per se, if you need
you help with that too.
Oh yes, we can help you with that.
Okay.
And any state department, any state agency, when you are dealing with the Department of Motor Vehicles, when you're dealing with EDD, the unemployment insurance, when you deal with any of those situations, my office, sometimes it takes a long time, right, to get on the phone or to get paperwork back, and you don't hear for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yes.
You can call your state senator's office and say, hey, I have this case, I have this problem. Can you folks help me communicate? And our team members will be more than happy to connect because we have direct connections with all the state departments, and they will help facilitate the information, getting things a little faster for you.
Yeah, so what about with EDD? Because you mentioned EDD now. So this has been a really big issue, especially since the pandemic.
Yes.
So can you help with the EDD?
Absolutely.
In which way?
In making sure that your cases are being heard or reconsidered, making sure that your paperwork has been received, or that you have received the information from EDD that needs to be filled out. So mitigating that communication, that information, is something that we can help you with.
Okay, so if I have a problem with EDD, I can contact.
Call us.
As much as I wish you are my senator, but I live in LA.
Oh, that's okay. We can find out who your senator is and we can give him a call.
You told us how to go online
Yep.
in the website and write our address, and we can find out
who my senator is.
Yes, and we can reach out to him.
Yes, be engaged. Let them know that you're here. Let them know that you're there. And ask whether or not they're doing any town halls. Ask if they're doing any community coffees.
We can attend.
That you can attend and meet them. Let them know who you are, because they need to know who you are. They need to know what you're thinking, what your values are, what you're supporting, and ask about the policies. Ask them, hold them accountable. The people hold the elected accountable. We are there to represent you. And certain groups have been very, very active and engaged in getting the community members involved, which is why we have the policy that's going through.
Yeah.
Now we're kind of playing catch up for many, especially the conservatives. Conservatives have, been on the back, just watching and listening and just living life, until now when we're realizing, wait, what do we have here? And what are they passing? Especially for me, when it came to the parental laws, when I go to my town halls and I meet with my constituents and I share the policy that's being discussed, the horror in so many of my constituents' faces. Why did we not know this?
Correct.
How did we not hear about this? And I said, hence the town hall, hence me being here
Yes.
to share this information with you. And hence the emails that we send out with all of the committees that are being heard, the policy that is being heard, because we need to hear from you. Your legislators need to hear from you. They need to understand that, nope, this is not what we want.
Yes.
This is not what our community believes is right. So right now we've got to empower people with information and engagement.
So even if my senator is not Republican and I am, I can speak out?
Absolutely, absolutely. No, especially.
Most of us feel like I shouldn't because he's not Republican like me, or he doesn't think the same way as I do. So
let me share you my personal philosophy when it comes to governance.
Yes.
We run with the label, right? We run with either a Democrat, Republican, Green Party, independent, libertarian, whatever your political party. But once you're elected, I believe we have a fiduciary duty to ensure that we listen to all our constituents, because our duty is to represent all of our constituents. We can agree and disagree, but needless to say, you have a right to meet with me. You have a right to be heard by me.
Okay.
And you have a right to express your voice. That is your right. And my duty is to ensure that I meet with all of my constituents as long as they want to meet with me and hear them out. If we disagree, that's okay. We can disagree, but I need to share with you why I disagree. And that's important for you to know, because when it comes to the next election, you need to know, do we agree the majority of the time, or do we disagree the majority of the time?
Yes.
Do they reflect the majority of my values, or do they not respect? Because sometimes we can have our same values but vote differently. So you need to learn how they're voting, where their values are, so that you know whether or not you can support this candidate for re-election or not.
So I know how to vote next time.
Exactly. We want to be informed voters, and that's so important. Beyond that, oh, she's a nice person, he's a nice person, or many people, because he's the same ethnicity as you are, because he's the same color as you. That's not why and how we should be voting. We need to vote people in that reflect our values, that represent you. Yes, very true.
As you know, my daughter and many other young adults would love to be like you one day. What is your advice to them?
Reach out to the offices that represent them, or to any local elected, and ask, do you have any programs, opportunities to do internships, to work for you, to volunteer? Volunteering is a great opportunity to get your step into any office, so you can learn how the system works, so you can learn how the values work, how people are engaged. So just find mentorship programs, internship programs, fellowship programs, volunteering opportunities, but be engaged.
Where can they find these programs?
Go directly, call the office. You have to know who they are. Local council, the local council, your city councils, water boards, ask them, do you have any programs for youth to be engaged in the civic part of it? You know, the assembly members, many assembly and Senate offices offer internship programs. So, but you're not going to know unless you give them a call. So figure out who they are and give them a call. And perhaps even if they don't have one at the time, the fact that people are calling in and asking about it might incentivize them to say, you know what, we probably should start a fellowship program. We should probably start a volunteer program or an internship program. So even if they don't have one in place, you calling or the youth calling will motivate them to start one.
Yeah. Senator, we wanted to thank you again for your time and all this helpful information that we learned today. It's been such a pleasure to meet you and learn more about you and the work you do. Thank you so much for being with us, Senator. You tell me now, like, there is a hope.
There is hope.
Yeah.
There's always hope. And as people of faith, we know that there is hope.
Yes.
There is always hope. And just knowing and understanding, how do we empower people? How do we share that information? I think it's the first step in the right direction.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator. It was a pleasure being with you today.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. And I'm only a phone call away. Please feel free to give us a call. And for any in the audience that would like to learn more about our office, learn more of our values, and how to get engaged, or how to help you navigate state agencies, how to navigate learning more and following policy, feel free to just search us on the internet and reach out to our office. We're here to help you.
Thanks again. أعزائي المشاهدين، أتمنى أن الحلقة تكون مفيدة وعلمتنا حاجات جديدة، واستنوني الحلقة الجاية من برنامج مصدر موثوق.
أنا شيطانة صغيرة شوية في السن، عندي 300 سنة بس، واسمي لا تخيلوا حتى وانتوا بتتكلموا فنلندي هيبقى اسمي صعب عليكم، فأنا هستأذنكم تدوني اسم بدل ما أنا اسمي اللي ما يتسمى. أي حد يديني اسم، أنا بكلمكم، أنا شيطان متواضع جدا، ممكن تدوني اسم إنسان.